And I remember when the doctor said those 7 words, "I'm so sorry, there is no heartbeat." My husband looked at me just devastated. I remember, Jill, in that room, I felt the Lord next to my bed, right here at the left-hand side. He was at my head, and I felt him weeping with us. And it brought so much comfort in that moment. I mean, all of the things that happened after, I think I clung to that moment where I could feel his presence. I could feel his heart breaking for us.
Yeah.
And could feel him comforting us.
Hey, everybody. Today we are talking to my friend Val Kleppen, and today it's only part 1, so be sure to come back next week for part 2. But please enjoy my conversation with Val. Hey, friends, welcome back to Halfway to Sunday, where we share honest, hope-filled stories of what God is doing in people's lives today. Today, we get into the waiting of it all. When prayers feel unanswered, directions feel unclear, and you're trying to stay faithful in a season that feels like a wilderness. In this episode, we are joined by my friend Val Kleppen, host of the Motherhood Experience Podcast. And together, we are talking about how we can stay faithful in the waiting, how to keep showing up when you don't have the full picture, and how God can be at work in the slow, hard, unseen chapters of our lives. Val, welcome to Halfway to Sunday.
Jill, I am so pleased to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh. Okay. We have to let people know that we are new friends, but I got to tell you that we have already had several conversations. It feels like that technically only two, but it feels like so many conversations in one. And so I'm so excited and expectant for our conversation. But before we get started, Val, tell me something good. What is bringing you joy this week?
Aside from the delicate, somewhat lame answer of adding a little cinnamon to my iced coffee in the morning, this past week plus, I have been jamming out to like early 2000s and it's like Christian rock nostalgia, kind of like Cutlass, Third Day. I mean, even today, driving in my car, it was me by myself, fist pumping in the air on the highway. And I was like, I forgot this Val existed, honestly. That was,
okay.
I mean, I don't want to remind us, Jill, but early 2000s was like 25 years
Like,
ago.
that was really rude what you just said. That's real rude.
I know. And so, but that Val came back for a visit, like for the last week plus, and I love it. I love it.
Oh my gosh. Okay. That is so fun. And I gotta tell everyone listening that I just played a song, an old song, as we were just getting the energy up in the rooms. And so you said I was gonna love what was bringing you joy. And that is exactly, yes, so much joy. Music is a huge part of my life. And so that brings me so much joy. That it brought you so much joy. But I got to tell you, I have, in a recent podcast, I would have mentioned my trip to Portland to visit my daughter. But what I didn't say in that episode is we did like this comfort food restaurant tour. Accidental. I don't think we actually planned it out, but it was so much fun. And there came a point, and one of the days, I think it was our first full day, where I just like look at my family and I'm like, I am so happy right now. I am so content. And it was, yes, about the food, but also the experience. Like, food is also part of culture. And so I think that when you are visiting someplace, it's a part of what you're doing, but then also just the joy that it brought us in the moment. And so that changed our conversation. It was just so fun. We just had so much fun. So I know that sounds so ridiculous, and that's, I guess, part of why I do this. Is it? It's just a comfort, again, accidental comfort food world tour, Portland tour, but still, it was so fun.
Okay, but also there's a pizza shop on 23rd Street, or what they call like trendy 3rd Street or something. Did you have pizza on 23rd Street in Portland?
We have in the past, so I don't know if it's the same one. So now I'm so curious.
I can't remember what it's called, but I bet if I heard it, I'd remember.
Oh my gosh, we're going to have to take this. Like, we'll have to report back to everyone listening.
Tune in for part 2, everybody.
Tune into part 2. Oh my gosh. Okay, my friend, would you just give us a glimpse into who you are and what you're doing? Because there's so many things I mean, it could take us a minute to get through all of it, but I would love for you to share with our Halfway to Sunday crew just who Val is.
Val is someone who is constantly trying to redefine herself, but always settles back into the familiar, comfortable things about herself, I think. I get adventurous for a minute and then I'm like, well, that was fun.
Okay.
But let's go back to the homeschooling mom, which,
Mhm.
you know, I, I live in the middle of South Dakota now, Jill. I swore I would never live in North Dakota, which is where my husband is from. And we moved there like the year after we were married. And then I swore I would never live in Minnesota. And we moved there in 2017. I swore I would never homeschool. We're wrapping up our 8th or 9th year of homeschooling. I can't even remember how long it's been. So now I'm just swearing I will never be a millionaire. We're just going to see what the Lord does with that.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I work from home. As you mentioned earlier in my intro, I host the Motherhood Experience Podcast, which is the most fun assignment the Lord has ever given me.
Mm.
And I would say also, like an asterisk, hosting the podcast also gives me so much joy. And it gives me
Yeah.
opportunities like this to get in front of more lovely friends. And it's just such a blessing. So I work from home, I home make, I homestead to the best of my ability. I do
Mm.
all things home, and I kind of love it that way.
Yeah. I jokingly, but also very seriously, I can't imagine living anywhere else besides California. So that is, I never have. I've lived in like a 20, 30-mile radius my entire life. And
Oh, wow.
so that you have lived not only in all of these places, but you have lived in very cold places that is that is very uncomfortable to think about. And so you are so brave.
I used to hate it, honestly. I used to despise winter and really resent it. And then I just got tired of being miserable all the time. And so I prayed that the Lord would change my heart. And
Mm.
genuinely, winter is one of my favorite seasons.
Okay, you bring up this really excellent point of I chose to not hate it. I asked the Lord to change my heart, and I feel like there's so much in this conversation of like this waiting season that we hate being in. The wilderness seasons feel
Mm.
so hard, and yet you just said something so impactful that you chose to and you prayed for a different point of view and looking at it. And I'd love to dive in here for just a second, just jump right into that because that is not easy. Like to even ask the question, to even pray, Lord, change my heart about this. Like, how do you even start there, Val?
Oh, boy. Well, I think that when you, if we're just going to really go deep right away,
I don't know. Let's do it.
there are people in my life, or I'll say, or there were people in my life who just were negative all the time. It didn't
Mm,
matter what it was about. They had a complaint for it.
right.
And I realized I didn't want to be that. And
Mm,
so with the whole winter thing, it was always like, oh, why do we live here? How did anybody settle here? Like, why did those immigrants think this was a good idea? I mean, it was just all of these questions. And
right.
then, but on the days when the snow would fall peacefully, not instead of
Right.
sideways when the wind was blowing, I enjoyed that there was beauty in it. And I would say things like, moving from Wyoming to North Dakota, I'd be like, well, in Wyoming, it snows and it's cold, but 3 days later, the snow is melted. Where
Mm,
in North Dakota, it stays for months and months. And it was like driving to work was like driving through like a rat in a maze, all these
oh, geez.
walls of snow. And it just got to a point where I was like, I don't know why I live here, but I do live here. And I'm going to continue living here for the foreseeable
Mm,
future. And I can either be like those negative people that I don't want to be like and didn't want to be like, or I
right.
can just make a perspective shift. And I couldn't do that on my own. I tried and
Yeah.
failed and was still miserable and not liking winter. And so I said, Lord, I don't want to be miserable.
Yeah.
And I don't need to love winter, but can you help me at least tolerate it? Like, and find joy in it, find some things to be positive about. And genuinely, second to fall, winter is my favorite season.
Wow. One of the reasons that we start each episode with what's bringing us joy is that what you just said. It is looking for the good because God blesses us. God gives us joy. He is
Mm,
constantly meeting us. We're the ones that miss it. We're the ones that get too busy or we purposefully avoid it or think negative thoughts about it when he's just like, look at this gift. Even if it is the cinnamon on your cup of coffee that brings you joy, that's real. Even if it is the comfort food Portland tour, but what a gift that was and the people that we're surrounding. And also, life can be so hard.
mm,
Winter can be long. The wilderness season can extend far longer than we want it to. And I think that there's something so powerful in the both and of this is really, really hard. And also, the joy of the Lord is my strength. I can see joy. I can see the love. I can see maybe even glimpses of what he's doing. And I mean, since we're just going in, you've walked through some really hard things that have taught you about those wilderness seasons. And I wonder if you would take us back to 13 years ago. Would you take us back to when you didn't want anything, well, not anything with to do with God, but you were like, I don't know if this is going to work out. And
yeah,
so would you just remind us and tell us about that season in your life?
yeah. So 16 years ago, when I became a mother, it
Mm.
was a bit traumatic in the sense that our daughter came 2 months premature, spent 30 days in the NICU. She was delivered by emergency cesarean
Mm.
in an effort to save both of our lives because I had HELP syndrome and was quite literally on my deathbed waiting in
Mm.
that hospital. And so my entrance into motherhood was nothing like I anticipated or planned. And it
Yeah.
was so traumatic, I would say.
Yeah.
And a couple years later, it was a Friday morning. I was getting ready to go to an early Friday morning Bible study. I just had the notion that maybe I might be pregnant. So I took a test to verify, and it was positive immediately. So I woke up, told my husband, I'm pregnant.
Mhm.
And my pregnancies were challenging in general. And at some point, I would end up on bed rest. And so once again, I ended up on bed rest in this pregnancy. And they had told me, like, you are high risk because you had HELP
Mhm.
syndrome. But unless you present high risk, we're not going to treat you as high risk. We're just going to treat it normal. And every appointment was, this is textbook. Your pregnancy is beautiful. This is going better than we could have hoped. All of these things.
Right.
And at my 36-week appointment, it was not my OB who I saw, and there was kind of a rotation. And so
Sure.
this was an OB I had never seen before. Everything checked out normal. And I did have a question because her heart rate, which was normally in the upper 150s to even like the 160s
Mhm.
sometimes, was at like 146, 147, which wasn't normal for her, but in the quote unquote normal range. And so I thought, well, I don't want to ask this doctor I've never seen. She's
Right.
given me a clean bill of health. I'll just wait till I see my OB next week. And I went into labor on at 37 weeks. So I had made it full term on paper. 37
Mhm.
weeks is full term. We had made it past the 32-week mark, which was for our oldest. And so I thought, like, we're in the clear.
Right.
Here we go. And that whole day felt off, Jill. Like, I didn't feel well. And I felt her kicking and just like, I thought she was having a regular old dance party that morning. When I went into labor, the contractions got more and more intense as the day went
Yeah.
on, but they weren't getting closer together. They were like 18 minutes, 5 minutes, 11 minutes, like just all over the map. And so every time I called labor and delivery, they'd say, I don't think you're in labor. Finally, I went into the hospital that night, about like 10 o'clock or so after we dropped our daughter off with some friends. And that was when they confirmed with ultrasound that our daughter's heart was no longer beating. And I remember when the doctor said those 7 words, "I'm so sorry, there is no heartbeat." My husband looked at me just devastated. And I
Yeah.
was so confused because in the throes of labor, exceptionally painful labor, I remember thinking, like, well, how are you going to get it started again?
Mm.
Babies don't die. Like, I made it to 37 weeks. I'm in labor. I'm delivering
Right.
her. Like,
Right.
this is not computing. And so when my husband looked at me, just devastated, it didn't click until the doctor left the room and said she would give us a minute. And he just started sobbing and he grabbed me and held me. And that's when it clicked. And so
Yeah.
I went from like not comforting him because I was so confused, also
Sure.
contracting incessantly, to the weight of the doctor's words and the reality of the situation
Yeah.
starting to settle in. And they were going to prep me for another cesarean delivery. And in that time, I dilated to 10 centimeters. Uh, just, I mean, I cannot tell you the amount of pain that I was experiencing. My water broke. And so instead of emergency cesarean, they took me across the hall to a delivery room. And at 16 minutes after midnight, I delivered our daughter, Harlan, um, in a quiet, still hospital room. And having the realization that you delivered death is just something that the mind can't reconcile.
Yeah.
I remember, Jill, in that room, I felt the Lord next to my
Mm.
bed, right here
Yeah.
at the left-hand side. He was at my head, and I felt him weeping with us. And it brought so much comfort in that moment. I
Mm.
mean, all of the things that happened after, I think I clung to that moment where I could feel his presence. I could feel his heart breaking for us
Yeah.
and could feel him comforting us. However, later I would question that
Yeah.
that presence and that comfort and think, wouldn't you have rather been celebrating with us than
Yeah.
grieving with us? And you were the one who could have changed this and you didn't. And this doesn't make sense. And so as a result of that wrestling with the question, I really tethered myself to the Lord with a long tether because I didn't want to sever my ties out of
Yeah.
selfishness of wanting to see my daughter again. But also I was too vulnerable to feel comfortable allowing myself to be so vulnerable,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. And so my tether was very long, and I
Yeah.
kept the Lord in sight, and I would kind of, maybe give a nod of acknowledgement now and again, but my relationship with him was completely deconstructed at that point.
Yeah. How long did you stay kind of keeping the Lord at the at arm's length? And listen, there's there's so much bravery in your story and you sharing that with us. And so I want to acknowledge that even though I asked the question, I felt like I needed to pull back for just a second because I'm so grateful for your story and you are so brave. And I love how you share your faith and that you share your space with moms, all sorts of different moms who just walk through so many different things, but you just share this honesty and this space for motherhood. And also, it's really hard to share the hardest day, and I would love for you to share with our friends listening, because I know there's people that have gone through similar things or hard things that keep them at arm's length. How long did that last for you, and how did you find your way back?
I don't think I can put a time frame on it so much as it was cyclical
Yeah.
at times. And it took months before I felt like I could approach the Lord in any sort of confidence. And then I would shirk back
Yeah.
again and then approach and then shirk back. But it took months. And it was a phone call from, yeah. I'll tell you, Jill, my prayer, the only prayer I could pray was,
Mm.
God, why?
Yeah.
God, why? And I meant so many things in those 2 words.
Yeah.
Why did it happen? Why us? Why do you expect me to move forward? Why do you expect me to help all these people now? I mean, so many things in those 2 words, but that was all I
Yeah.
had the strength, the emotional strength to pray.
Yeah.
And I get this phone call from another woman from church who was having a hard time with something that I would consider super benign, considering I just put my daughter in the ground months prior.
Yeah.
And she said, I know you're a prayer warrior, and I was hoping you would pray for me.
Mm.
And initially, I was so offended and angered and thinking, I have prayed 2 words for months, and I am too embattled to pick up my weapons to be any kind of warrior that you are referencing. But I didn't say any of that, and I just wanted her off the phone.
Yeah.
So I said a prayer that I felt like would suffice, but it was a genuine prayer.
Mm.
I didn't fake my way through it. I genuinely prayed, and something shifted. And it
Yeah.
was almost like reignited a desire to know once again this Lord that I had known prior to this happening.
Yeah.
And so I went to the Psalms, where I had thought David was bipolar once upon a time,
Yeah.
to where I now saw him as a man who was genuine, authentic. He understood bereaved parent life
Yeah.
and really connected with the Psalms. And so little by little, I started to shorten that tether to the Lord, especially Psalm 139, where he talks about, I hem you in before and behind.
Yeah.
And just imagining, just like he was in that hospital room, he was holding me in between his
Yeah.
hands in that safe space where he was going to let me wrestle and flail, but he wasn't going to leave me there.
Mm.
And that was the beginning of the beginning, I would say.
Yeah. I want to go back to those 2-word prayers because as frustrated, as angry, as sad, as grieved, as hurt as you were, that 2-word prayer was a connection point, whether however long that connection point that you felt it was still a connection point. And I think that's so powerful that you were able to sit in that and say even a 2-word prayer. What would you tell someone who is walking through the hardest thing and that their tether is real long right now? How would you encourage them with those 2-word prayers?
I would want to encourage them by giving them permission, but not that they need it, but sometimes maybe they just need to hear that they have it,
Yeah.
to accept the messy journey,
Mm,
because it doesn't
yeah.
have to look a certain way, and it certainly does not have to be polished. That
Yeah.
was one thing that really irritated me, was the people who would try to encourage me or, send me a blog post or something. Everything was so polished, and I was so raw
Yeah.
and
You were in the
knew,
mess.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
and knew that I couldn't be. And I've always, like, growing up, my favorite songs were the really moody, emotional ones.
Right.
And even on when my husband would be at work, when the kids were really little, I had a karaoke list, and I would just play it super loud and just belt out these songs. And one day my daughter comes to me and she goes, "Can we listen to something else? All these songs are sad." And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah," because I can sit there.
Right.
I can sit there in the moodiness of it. And so I think that we have to allow ourselves permission to sit in the
Yeah.
heavy, in the mess, in the mood, and not put expectations on ourselves, and
Yeah.
certainly not let the expectations of anyone else stick to us or affect us in any way. So
Yeah.
give yourself permission to process it, to grieve through it, however you need to, because I don't know if you know this or not, but the God we serve is big.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
are not going to overpower him with our sadness or our grief. And he
Yeah.
is so steadfast. He will be there when we can pick ourselves up again.
hmm The unhealthy side of me will go straight to positivity, the toxic positivity, and just perhaps miss what you just said of allowing myself to sit in it. So it's very different, like that. Maybe the two sides of the same coin of I'm going to, in the unhealthy version of myself, skip over and move to the fun and the joy and the whatever. And it's so interesting that we started this episode with joy, but it's so interesting how my joy practice has changed because I am a lot more aware. I'm a lot more real about the hard things, but it's really maybe my natural tendency to not sit in the hard things. And
Mm.
so that encouragement that you just gave is, I think, so important. And it's a hard fought lesson that I've had to fight for in my own life of, uh, Jill, just sit with this.
Can
Allow yourself to be angry.
can I dig into that for a minute?
Oh my gosh, are you podcasting me right now?
You got me there. So the interesting thing, and this is something that we don't practice, but like if you read the book
Yeah.
of Job and if you know anything about Jewish history,
Yeah.
they sat Shiva
Yes.
for 7 days, not saying a word. They sat in the pain,
And
they
the hard
sat
thing.
in the heavy. And it didn't matter if they were uncomfortable, they did it anyway.
Yeah.
And I think that that is something we have really tried to gloss over or push aside, like, oh, I don't
1000%.
like how this feels. And so I'm going to try to present as if it should
Mhm.
feel different,
Yeah.
or present as if we can win this person over or win our
Mhm.
own self over by making it better than it is. And that doesn't work for everybody. Even the Bible says something about, now I can't remember that verse in Proverbs where it's like someone shouting a morning greeting is like, you know,
Right.
I can't remember what it says, but essentially nails on a chalkboard. And that's, I mean, me and my sister, essentially.
Right.
I would say my sister sometimes shares that toxic positivity trait with you.
Mm.
She is my best friend in the entire world. I would be lost without her. But have I told her to stuff it because I just need to work through what I'm
Right.
feeling? Yes.
Yeah. And I think that's an important thing. I think that, and I didn't expect to go here if I'm being completely honest, but maybe that's what someone needs to hear right now is the importance of abiding with someone in their
Mm.
pain. The ministry of presence is, oh my gosh, probably the most important thing we can do as followers of Jesus, but also as humans, is just to allow space for grief, to allow space for those hard things to be felt, to allow space for someone to say, I'm not okay, and to not have a timeline put on them or not to have expectations put on them. That's between you and the Lord.
Yeah.
And to be honest enough to say, I'm not okay, Lord, but I want to be, or I'm not
Yeah.
okay and I don't know how to be. And I hope, I guess that's my greatest hope in this conversation right in this moment is if someone listening is having a hard time seeing that there's light or that there's joy, is just this, you are this reminder, you're giving us this reminder that they're not alone, first and foremost, and second of all, the Lord gets it.
Yeah.
He's sitting in it with you, and he doesn't leave you alone, not for a
Yeah.
second.
Amen.
What would you what would you say? I know this last year has been a bit of a waiting season, and maybe there's even some lessons that you're saying, I learned this before, it feels familiar. What would you say of the current wilderness season or the one you're just leaving? How does that compare to the waiting and the difficulties of what you experienced all those years ago?
I think a lot of it ties back to being so unsettled in the discomfort of it.
Mm.
And I am the type of person to where if I can control the outcome of something, you bet your bottom dollar I'm going to.
Mm.
I'm going to manage it just so. I'm going to expect this result and work to obtain that. And when something happens that is out of your control, that
Yeah.
really does a number on your psyche. And so that was probably part of my grief because I felt like, was it something I did? Was it
Yeah.
something that I did in my pregnancy? Could I have done this differently? Was it this? Was it that?
Yeah.
And essentially trying to find where I had failed. This last year, there were just so many unanswered questions,
Yeah.
which fueled the uncertainty, which fueled the lack of control or the feeling of the lack of
Yeah.
control, which fueled the feeling of discomfort.
Mm.
And instead of just sitting and letting it sort itself out, I ran myself ragged trying to
Mm.
control the outcome. And I was just thinking about this earlier today about, the 2025 was one of the biggest struggle bus rides of my life, save 2013 when my daughter died. So
Right.
that should tell you something.
Right.
And so much of the misery and upheaval that I
Yeah.
experienced, I realized today was a direct result of me trying to control the outcome.
Yeah.
And so you look at, the Israelites after they left Egypt, and there was a group of them who broke off and they were like, we're going back to Egypt. And I was thinking today, I was like, I think that was driven by fear of the unknown.
Mm.
They didn't know what they were walking into. They knew what they were familiar walking out of, and they just wanted to return to the familiar because they were afraid.
Yeah.
And the rest of them, because they tried to control the outcomes, they tried to make their own gods, they tried to gather
Yeah.
more manna than they were supposed to. And all of these examples of they've, forgot the Lord was with them and they tried to control the outcome. They never got to reap the reward of the promised land as a result of that.
Yeah.
So last year, here's Val trying to put all of these moving parts in order that makes sense to her,
Mm.
but it wasn't God's way. It wasn't his will. And
Yeah.
I was miserable as a
Mm.
result of that. And when I finally surrendered and threw my hands up and said, Lord, I don't know what this is. I don't know what you have for me, but I know I'm tired of trying to fight to make it a certain way.
Yeah.
And that was it. And I just left it alone. Wouldn't you know it, Jill? Things started to turn around.
Yeah.
I started to become comfortable with the uncertainty.
Mm.
And dare I say, I started to trust the Lord and believe that
Yeah.
he was who he said he was, and believe that even even if things don't work out the way I want or expect or desire, that doesn't mean that it's not his way and that
Mm.
something better is not going to come from it. And so surrender happened to be my word of the year for 2025, and I would not recommend that. But also,
Right.
it was the last word of like I didn't do a word for 2026 because I felt like I put so much focus on my word of the year instead of the word.
Mm.
And so I didn't do one for 2026, but just learning to like sit and be comfortable in the silence and in trusting that the Lord has a plan and a way and a
Yeah.
purpose. And me trying to control the outcome isn't necessarily going to change the outcome, but it is
Yeah.
going to make getting there a lot harder.
Mm. I hate repeating stories because I feel like everybody's gonna be like, "Jill, you already told this story," but it's been months ago, but it feels so appropriate in this moment of last summer. I just kind of in the same boat of It was a summer of wrestling. It was a summer of the Lord saying, I'm gonna poke you here because it's gonna hurt a little bit, but you need to address this. You need
Mm.
to deal with this. And so then it ended up with me doing this September of surrender. And it was surrender is hard.
Yeah.
Just opening your hands and saying, okay, Lord, I don't know what to do with this, but you do. And it was so interesting in this September of, I don't want to call it a fasting, but it was ultimately fasting from some things, surrendering things. It was painful and wonderful all at the same time. And as I was journaling at the end of the month, I, when God just places a scene into your brain and you're like, where
Uh,
did this come from? I haven't thought
yeah.
about this movie from the 90s in a million years. I don't know how, there's no reason for this movie to enter my brain. And it was Days of Thunder. Have you even seen it? Most people
No.
have not. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. It is a racing movie. And it is, again, it is so ridiculous that the Lord could use even this to speak to me. But there's a point of tires, of the car not running the way anyways. And the pit master is going like, do it my way. We'll do 50 laps your way, 50 laps my way, and we'll see what happens. And at the end of the laps, of course, 50 laps, the driver's way, the tires are tore up, and 50 laps, the pit boss and him saying like, what the you do it my way, and the tires are perfect. You gotta have tires to finish a race. And at the end of this scene replaying in my head, and I'm just kind of laughing at, okay, where did that come from? The Lord goes, we've done it your way, and now let's do it mine.
Oof.
And I was all, point received. And it was so humbling.
Mhm.
And then also, it was like a weight lifted.
Mm.
And I was just like, okay, all right. I'm going to fail at this and I'm going to get it wrong, but you're right. Okay, so this is yours. All of this is yours. And just show me what to do next.
Mm.
But it is so hard. So, what would you, with saying all of that, how would you help someone take those first steps of surrender?
I'll tell you that you have nothing to lose in
Mm,
surrendering, even though that feels completely counterintuitive.
yeah.
Because if you are laying things down or letting go of something, essentially you are losing it.
Mm,
But if you believe God, if you trust he is who he says he is, and if you believe me in sharing my own experience
yeah.
in this, once you let something go, what he has for you is
Hmm.
going to be worth the struggle.
Yeah.
It it's going to be more beneficial not only for you personally, but
Yeah.
for you, those around you, friends, family, coworkers, strangers,
Mm,
eternally. It is going to impact the kingdom for
yeah.
eternity if you are willing to just let go and receive what he has for you. And what he has for you, it may be a temporary thing, it may be a permanent thing.
Mm,
It doesn't matter. It's going to be a glory thing.
yeah.
And that's so hard to hear. Like, Jill, me answering this question and the listener hearing it is maybe not going to change their heart about it because that's hard.
Yeah.
That's hard to hear and to believe and to trust. But I'm hoping it will at least make their mind wrestle about it a little bit.
Yeah.
And
Allowing themselves to wrestle with it.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And I hope it brings to mind too, oh, I remember a story so and so shared about
Mm,
this. And so maybe there is something here that
yeah.
I am all about sharing our stories, not only because I feel like it's cathartic for us
Yeah.
and it helps us process through things, but when you hear someone else's story and there are pieces of it that speak to you or that you
Yeah.
can relate to, you realize number one, you're not crazy, you're not alone.
Yeah.
But if it worked for someone else, it is possible that something will work for you as well.
Yeah.
And I think we just set these standards for ourselves or we set these expectations And it doesn't matter if they're realistic or not, they embed themselves
Yeah.
into our brain. And they're not always true or factual or right. And maybe we need to start house cleaning with those first.
Mm,
Like unlearn the things that you have taught yourself, maybe.
right. You know, it's so interesting how much of my early faith was unlearning things I think we all do. Whether it's bad theology we need to replace or the lies we believe about ourselves or about God, I think it's the unlearning where we find the surrender. It's us admitting or just acknowledging that we don't have it all figured out and we really do need Jesus. But this is a perfect time to pause because we will be continuing the conversation with Val next week as we talk about the wrestling and more of Val's story of healing. Friends, I'm so glad you're here. I hope you leave each episode feeling loved and seen. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And while you're there, would you share it with someone? And if you found this to be encouraging, empowering, or it equipped you in any way, would you leave a rating? That helps new friends find us and join our community, and we would love to hear from you. Finally, don't forget that you can join us on Instagram and TikTok at halfwaytosunday. See you there.